What are Pyro's best and worst weapons in MvM? That's right, gentlemen, today we're back and covering MvM's hardest class for new players to not insta-lock every single goddamn mission. You know the rules by now. This is a 2 cities MvM tier list. It's made under the perspective of a solo queuing player, and each weapon is ranked based on the respective weapon slots. So yes, the flamethrower might be in the same tier as the fucking mailbox, that does not make them equivalent in terms of power. And of course, this is just my opinion, blah blah blah, here we go. In keeping with the tradition of stock melee weapons being the den of shit, we are starting off with the stock fire axe. Same problems as the bat and the shovel, the axe has bad damage and 0 utility. There's really not much else to say. And here stands the weapon forged from the fiery pits of a mighty volcano, and it's worse than your average lumberjack tool. The volcano fragment does less damage than stock, with its only benefit being afterburn on hit. But just like bleed damage, an extra 8 DPS against these big ass robots is about as useful as gunning down an attack helicopter with pebbles. Typically, speed buffs are fucking awesome in MvM. But when the scout's bat outclasses you in damage, and the speed boost is shorter than any single boost on hit effect in the game, the hot hand struggles to find any use whatsoever. Maybe the back scratcher has a use on other tours where medic isn't the meta, but in 2 cities, that itch for healing will always be scratched by your team's medic or your NG's life-giving pet rock, aka the dispenser. So nerfing that shit by 75% for a bit more of a boost from a medium medkit you'll almost certainly be hogging the entire game, it's just not worth it at all. This weapon has 2 niches, and both of them are so uncommon that it basically doesn't fucking matter. The Neon Annihilator lets you crit robots that are doused in piss or milk, and lets you remove sappers with 2 swings. You could maybe kill an uber medic if your picker is lazy and your scout prematurely throws his milk, and maybe you could save a sentry if your team's NG gets backstabbed, but you have a higher chance of getting an Aussie than ever having both of those things happen in a single wave. And both of those specific niches have better weapons coming up. This is the Man Melter with maximum upgraded firing speed. No, not default firing speed, maximum upgraded firing speed. Shotguns, all of them. They were D tier for the soldier, and it's the same shit, different toilet. Shotguns do all of their damage at close range, but so do all your flamethrowers. So there's pretty much no point to ever use them. At least Pyro can Hadouken taunt kill with it, but that's not enough to put them any higher. The Home Wrecker can save your NG's buildings from being sapped if you're on a team where turning around is a foreign concept. But other than that, it has pretty much no use whatsoever. Like, I could barely get any footage of this ever saving a building, since it basically does not happen ever on good teams. But on bad teams, it's fine, I guess. The Extinguisher isn't terrible, but it just acts as one big redundancy in Pyro's kit, because the flamethrower will almost always do more damage at close range, no matter what. But it can work as a last resort medic killer, provided you get the right setup and the speed boost actually helps, unlike the hot hand. So not terrible, just not that good. Oh fuck. The Scorch Shot is a completely dogshit weapon offensively. If you're an experienced MvM player, you'll know exactly why this weapon is a pain in the dick. Knockback is fucking annoying. It messes up your demo's sticky traps, it makes the heavy have to aim upwards to hit all of his shots, and if you're not getting vote-kicked by your team's sniper, then you're dodging more bullets than the robots that you're knocking into the air. But what saves it from D tier is, as a mobility tool, it's actually pretty good, and can help Pyro make some jumps faster. But if you're actually trying to use the Scorch Shot as an attack weapon, you need help. And now here's a flare gun you can actually shoot without being called racial slurs over the mic. The normal flare gun is fine at getting bits of residual damage from a distance in situations where it's not safe to charge in with your flamethrower. But there are more useful secondaries with more beneficial effects, so the flare gun sits in C tier. The Degreaser is the worst flamethrower in the game for MvM, and is a straight up downgrade from the stock. Faster weapon switch doesn't really mean shit when combo Pyro isn't remotely close to viable in MvM. So all you really get is the reduced afterburn damage and increased air blast cost. And I know both of those nerfs don't really matter that much, but it's enough to knock it down a tier. It does let you spam gas more easily though, which, depending on who you ask, could be a good thing or a terrible thing. The third degree acts as Pyro's plan B if he blows his gas load too early. Because this thing crits like a fucking super luck Farfetch, and Pyro normally has at least one Uber canteen on him, it's not that bad as a last resort option for killing Uber medics. Most Pyro melees suck ass, so this one having an actual common use makes it pretty decent. The Thermal Thruster is a good mobility tool, held back by its slow startup and stun upgrade not being in by default. It allows you to get behind robots and fuck them in the ass without being aggroed like you normally would. There's also all the same benefits you would get from a normal sticky jump, of being able to get to the front lines faster and retreat more safely, so it's alright. Still on the Pyro mobility train, next up we have the best flare gun in the game, the Detonator. Although it's not as mobile as the jetpack, being able to consistently and quickly jump from the bottom to the top floor of Manhattan is such a good thing. You can also do this with the rocks on Rottenburg and the right cliffside with very strict timing, but I find the Manhattan one has the bigger quality of life to it. You can also use it to jump on the heads of robots and cancel your Flog's taunts, allowing for more crit DPS with free invincibility. It has a lot of common uses and works well in the context of its kit. It's common to look at the stock flamethrower and associate it with the PTSD every high tour gets from watching clown after clown spam the fuck out of Air Blast, but I think we need to look at the weapon detached from that reality. Even though it loses to other options on sustained long-term DPS, stock has the second best crowd control of all the flamethrowers, and is the only flamethrower in the game to not have an Air Blast nerf. And me saying that is not carte blanche to keep air blasting the Sentry Buster away from the Engie, you fucking mongoloids. Sorry, that's the PTSD coming out. Stock is fine. Hey, remember when this thing was fucking broken on launch and Valve actually nerfed it to the point where it wasn't overpowered? I guess 1 out of 2 ain't bad. But the Dragon's Fury in its current state is kind of the reverse of the stock. It has very high sustained DPS thanks to its faster firing speed on hit, but it suffers more in the realm of crowd control. Not only because you have to actually aim your shots, but also because you're never really getting the firing speed buff because robots usually die too fast to get a second hit in. But for what it's worth, it's a pretty decent flamethrower. In terms of Pyro's best damaging flamethrowers, I think this one is the runner-up, and probably the top contender on Manhattan thanks to how easy it is to obstruct the robot's aggro. Even though the crits from the back are a little inconsistent, you'll take what you can get with a fucking 300% damage boost. As a general rule, if a robot is ever aggroed onto somebody other than you for an extended period of time, you're going straight to Crit City. I mean, Pyro just ends up farming so hard if he can bounce off his team in that fashion. The only problem is that actually achieving this, specifically on Rottenburg, isn't all that consistent. And it being tied for being the worst flamethrower on tanks doesn't help in that aspect. There's also the Air Blast nerf, but you shouldn't really care about that. So, amazing on Manhattan, but just good on Rottenburg. And that makes it not broken enough to be the best flamethrower. The Power Jack is very easy to understand as to why it's an S tier weapon. It's the only melee weapon for Pyro that transcends a niche use in favor of general utility. 15% extra movement speed whenever you're holding the weapon out does all the good movement speed things. It makes it faster to get back in and fight, makes it faster to get in position for certain robots, makes it faster to retreat for health. Everything you do is faster. And yeah, you take 20% more damage while holding it, but the big weakness of being able to get quickscoped or body shot by a sniper and die doesn't really exist in MvM, so this weakness is much easier to manage. I want you guys to put this thing on and count how many times you'll switch to it during each mission. That number will be more than what you can count on one hand, and that can't be said for any of Pyro's other melees. Okay, so, I know a lot of people find this weapon contentious, and I'm not one to say that reputation isn't entirely unearned. It's MvM's most powerful weapon, but this is a tier list based off a weapon's effectiveness. Not fun factor, not health for the game, just purely based on how good the weapon is. And just like the beggars, I have a whole in-depth video on the gas passer in the works. But let's rapid fire some of its best features for the sake of the tier list. It's insanely cheap to upgrade at 400 credits, it one-shots any group of small robots in the game, it lingers on the ground afterwards so even more robots get caught in the blast, it can be used at long range, it can be used at close range, it can kill uber medics, it's unaffected by Fist of Steel heavy resistances, it has a recharge upgrade, it can be farmed off of tanks, and is completely spammable if the Pyro knows where to position himself. That is a lot of benefits. Probably too much. Definitely too much. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but there's no getting around it. Pound for pound, the gas passer demolishes every other secondary with just how potent it really is. And as if we couldn't get any more monkey brain, the best flamethrower in the game is the Flog. Sure, you can't air blast. But as I've mentioned, air blast becomes less and less of a benefit the more you learn how to play the game. The Flog has the best sustained DPS versus tanks and giants, and doesn't rely on good team cohesion like the Backburner does in order to receive its crits. This also makes it very good for crowd control, but I think the thing that puts it really over the edge are the Flog cancels. I went over this with the detonator a little bit, but you can effectively get half of a crit and half of an Uber Canteen simultaneously by using the Flog taunt on a robot's head, which is pretty easy to set up, especially with jump height upgrades. I still think the Backburner has the edge on Manhattan, but I think the benefits of the Flog, especially on Rottenburg, make it the better of the two. And that's it for the tier list. If you guys enjoyed the video and want to see more MvM related content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. I have a shitload of videos in the works, and I hope you'll stick around to see them. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. See ya. Dude, there's no way. There's no fucking way. Come on. Come on, please. Please. Holy fuck, Valve. Why do you suck so much cock?